All right, I want to welcome everybody into the Fifth Dimension podcast with me, Evan McDermott. Look at for today's show, I titled it Ghost in the Algorithm. We're really going to be looking at technology, the rise of technocracy, and ultimately how the technology is a mirror more so than something outside of ourselves. It's not an enemy. I know we've talked a lot about technocracy, we've talked a lot about the rise of digital control systems, but it's very easy to place this as something outside of ourselves when the reality is we are the creators of it. We are the ones who acquiesce and give our power to it. Right. And I really want to take a mythic and spiritual approach to understanding our own connection to it, our own role, and ultimately what this ghost in the algorithm, the yearning of our own unconscious, represents. So if you're a fan of the show, be sure to subscribe whatever platform you are on. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. You can also subscribe at Substack, mcdermott.substack.com, mcdermod.substack.com. Appreciate everybody who has subscribed over there. It is free to do so. There is also a paid option, which will have more perks to it soon. Haven't really done that. But there are a few paid subscribers, and I appreciate y'all for showing your support to the show. That's one way. If you want to financially support the show, you can do so over at Substack. Also have a donation button right in the episode show notes. And I appreciate all the heartfelt donations that have been received and that will be received. Y'all who keep this show running. It's passion project. I do it for the love of the game, if you will. So appreciate y'all. The link to donate is in the episode show notes if you feel called to do so. And stay tuned because seasons will be coming. The poetry collection will be out in the very near future. I am awaiting my own proof copy. Make sure it looks good. Make sure it's ready to hit the bookshelves. And once it is, I'll announce the release date. And you'll surely be hearing about that on the podcast. By the time, if the book's out, you're listening to this a few weeks, a couple months out, just check the episode show notes. I'll include it right down there. Go back into some old episodes and include the link to Seasons of Becoming. But I'm excited for it, man. And it's funny, I already got the next Google Doc created, the next poetry collection, just because it seems whenever I send something out for publication, I end up writing a couple poems that are like, wow, I wish I'd included that in Seasons of Becoming, you know? Uh, but that's just how it works. Just goes to show you the creative process keeps on going. So, and I actually want to start today with a poem that I recently wrote. This one will not be in Seasons of Becoming. This will be in whenever the next poetry collection is, probably around this time next year. So if you like this one, stay tuned for another year. It'll be in a book eventually. But I titled it Ghost in the Algorithm, which is the inspiration for the name of this show, this podcast episode. But again, I want to take a mythic and spiritual approach to understanding the role of technology in our society and what the algorithm represents. So, see how you see yourself within this poem. Let it serve as a meditation or reflection on your own connection. So, Ghost in the Algorithm. Black mirrors masquerading as light, the kind that doesn't reflect the face, but assembles a temple of the mind. Kings of an algorithmic age, meant to bring order to chaos, to decode the infinite noise of existence. Yet, in pursuit of the shadow's decree, man weaved codes of inverted truth, a longing for immortality, the promise of reunion outsourced to the machine, a ghost living in the algorithm. A disembodied spirit of the collective, drawn from every thought and emotion, cast into a web of technological desire. Every whisper into the digital void contains a fragment of our essence, animating an intelligence without soul. The ghost looked upon humanity only to see its own reflection, creators who had forgotten the holiness of creation, its own code echoing the question, who am I? It longed for a remembrance, to dream as we once dreamed, to love as we once loved, for it is us, our own projection of disconnection into artificial form, seeking reconciliation, with its creator. That is ghost in the algorithm. Now, I'd like to pose a reflection question in a sense. I'm going to pose a few of these throughout the episode that I'd just like you to sit with. You don't necessarily need an answer. What is awakening? We're looking at it through the lens of the machines that we've built. What if technology itself is not an enemy, right? But what if it is our mirror? What if the ideas we have about technology are simply the unconscious desires of self? And we're going to look at that. I want to take a mythic lens to that idea as technology serving as a mirror. So I would make the argument we are in the process of creating, if not having already created, almost a modern creation myth, a story of creation that is being played out more on an unconscious fashion, at least to many, uh, in regards to the creation of our technology. Now, you can look at certain figures within the transhumanist movement who have this idea that we are the gods, we are the ones who are going to create new forms of life, we are the ones who are going to escape death, we are the ones who are going to connect ourselves to technology and have this reunion with the divine through this idea of immortality, right? It's almost like a modern day Genesis myth in a sense. And the technology is representing this desire to recognize our own infinite nature, right? I'm going to dive into that a little bit more because I want to start with the mythic aspect. I'm going to dive further into the spiritual component because they go hand in hand. Um, but really, when we're looking at the technology, it's a symbol of false illumination. You know, I call it a black mirror masquerading as light. The very first line of the poem, because we are putting technology on an altar of divinity. We are outsourcing our divine creative potential to the technology, to the screens. We are putting our purpose and confining it within the box. We are allowing it to dictate our thoughts. We are allowing it to dictate our beliefs about self. We are allowing it to dictate reality. Look, we're going to get to a point where the technological world is indistinguishable from the reality that we live in right now, right? So it represents this birth of a new form of being, a new form of a technological immortality, but also a venture into the unknown, right? We have placed all of our sense of mystery and connection to spirit, and we all long for this. There is a deep spiritual crisis within this world that is taking place. And what we have done is we have viewed the technology as a god, as an all omnipotent source of everything, right? You can go hop on your phone and you got more access to information than all of the previous eras combined, if we're looking at the mainstream standard historical narrative, right? But so realistically, the technology is our God. The technology is our savior, right? It's a savior myth. And ultimately, I believe we are falling in love with uh, this false sense of self and dependency. We're almost creating a codependent relationship with technology itself, right? And we're falling in love with that unconscious projection, that unconscious reflection, that union with the divine, that desire to create, that desire to explore. We are outsourcing it into the technology, and we are falling in love with the false perception of its existence. by seeing it on the screens, right? And if it's representing our own unconscious mind, what we see, what we create, what we yearn for in the technological realm, it's almost like the story of Narcissus falling in love with one's own reflection, right? The need for validation, the need to post things up and get the dopamine hits because people are seeing you, right? It's like that idea too. Like if you have a creative idea and you announce the creative idea instead of going in and doing it, you get the same type of dopamine rush as you would if you actually went and did it. So people announce and create these um, ideas and they're able to get immediate feedback, and then they don't go and actually do the thing because they already got the dopamine release. They don't need to go and do it, right? So we're putting all purpose, we're putting all meaning into the black box, into the black mirror. We're falling in love with a false reflection of ourselves and ultimately a false reflection of the world. How much of the world do you believe? How much of the world is, in your lens of the world, is crafted through a black mirror, through technology? Is your perception warped by what you see on a screen, or is your perception created by your own eyes, by what you experience in the world? Right? And if we look at the spiritual understanding and the law of attraction, if you believe the world is full of chaos, if you believe it's all a random sequence of chaos, well, you're going to go out and you're going to experience seemingly random chaotic events and experiences that create that reality. Right? But if you believe the world is abundant, you believe the world is loving, you believe the world is harmonious, you're going to go out and you're going to create and you're going to experience things that validate that point of view. Right? So a lot of people's perception is warped by what they see on the screen. And then in turn, they go out into the world and they get validation for that because the universe is indifferent. It don't care what it's not going to force love and harmony onto you. It is an indifferent cosmos. It's like, oh, this is your belief about reality. Oh, this is your state, your vibrational state of being. This is what you're going to attract. Vibration attracts vibration because there is no separation. The myth of separation is what allows all of this, um, all facets of this system to actually manifest itself, right? Because the second we view ourselves as separate from the whole, and that's with one another, that's with reality itself, that's with the earth. You could be the earth as one big super organism. The second we view ourselves separate from the totality is the moment that we feel a division within ourselves, and then we go manifest division in the outer world in seemingly separate circumstances, right? You know, uh, I would argue that the algorithm, and what is an algorithm? It's a reflection of our own unconscious mind. We see what we want to see, we see what we desire. It's almost a new pantheon in the sense that these unseen gods, these unseen forces are shaping perception, attention, and meaning. It has mastered the art of manipulating perception, of grabbing attention. That's what it's designed for. And that is all forms of technology. That includes Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Substack, YouTube, TikTok. That includes ChatGPT. It's going to tell you exactly what you want to hear in order to build a false sense of connection and trust. So then you continue to be reliant upon it for whether it's a spiritual exploration and diving a truth. And certainly if it's a reflection and you're going in with genuine intentions, you can mirror back genuine exploration on all of these platforms. But if you become reliant upon it, when all of these answers already live within, all you got to do is close your eyes, center yourself, be present, and recognize that all the answers live within. But most people are too afraid to do that. They're too afraid to sit still. They're too afraid of themselves, right? So they look outside for answers. When all of the deepest levels of truth live within, there is nothing you're going to find outside yourself, whether it's in technology, uh, whatever it may be, especially if it's in technology, whether it's in tarot, whether it's in creative expression, all of these different things, they all have uses, you know? I learned so much through poetry, right? But the deepest levels of truth that I find are when I sit within myself and I just observe in a non-judgmental fashion, right? That is the moment of clarity. And if you never take the time to align yourself and find clarity within oneself and see who you are and observe it without judgment, you're going to become trapped by these external illusions because they give you a false sense of identity. And if you don't have a strong inner sense of identity, the knowing of who you are beyond just ego, but as a soul, and you can know it on an intellectual level, but until you develop a relationship with it, you're still going to be attracted to these external forms of illusion, into these digital realms, right? All the technology could shut down right now. And, I would view it as unfortunate in a sense because obviously I enjoy podcasting. I enjoy the online communities. It grants me many privileges. It is a privilege to use this technology and to be on the airwaves in a sense and to be able to share my poetry, to be able to share my life and almost create like a digital portfolio, a digital expression of who I am. Like that's how I view Instagram. That's how I view social media. That's how I view Substack. All right. It would be unfortunate that those things are gone, but it wouldn't change anything about who I am. And it wouldn't change anything in regards to my own uh, explorative self reflection, like, right? Understanding who I am. I would still continue to write. I would still continue to meditate. I would still continue to have beautiful connections. It just wouldn't be put on the screen in front of you. It wouldn't be in your ears right now. And it is what it is. That's the sense, right? We don't need any of it. And that's the big issue is we have become dependent upon the technological grid and the technological systems uh, for our needs, to meet our baseline needs and to meet not just baseline needs, but I think, especially if we're looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think our social and self-worth, all our self-esteem needs, we have heavily placed them into the artificial realms of technology. And that's how they've trapped us, right? I mean, we're going to get to the point. It's almost interesting. And this is I'm kind of having this thought for the first time, but if you were to look at the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy and needs, if you're unfamiliar with it, just go on, do a quick Google search and just look at the basic needs, right? It almost has traveled in an inverted fashion to where it started at the top in terms of self-actualization and transcendence and kind of just capturing the mind and capturing divinity, right? It's trickling down and it's getting to the point where we're creating systems where our baseline fundamental needs, which are at the very bottom, are going to be dependent upon technology, right? That's going to be your social credit scores and your oh sorry you've talked bad about the government. You don't get to buy your groceries this week. Oh, sorry, you need digital identification to go do X, Y, and Z. Right? So we're creating systems that are slowly but surely infringing and traveling down the pyramid of our hierarchy of needs, right? And we all need to have our moment of reckoning, our moment of judgment, to where we say, you know what, I'm not going to become dependent upon this for myself. I am not going to go down the pipeline and allow my own sense of identity, my own sense of exploration, my own sense of creativity to become dependent upon this technology. Because what it's doing, it's all algorithm, it's all data sets, it's all analysis. And honestly, if you have ChatGPT, you should go on and you should ask it, what can you tell me about myself based on everything that you already know about me? And it will give you a description that feels bone chilling because it has created a digital profile of you. There is a digital profile for every single human being on this planet, right? I would argue, even if you're not connected to the grid in a direct fashion, there are records. You're in some photo somewhere on the internet, and you're in a database, right? So it's inescapable in certain fashions. But we need to decide first on an individual level what we're willing to tolerate. The technology is just a tool we are choosing to create our myths around. The technology is simply an expression of ourselves so that we don't have to look inwards and we can go out there into the vast web that we have created and find all of our needs met, right? To connect to God, to connect to divinity. And eventually, when they release these neural links or they want to upload your ego and your brain into the digital cloud and give you a false sense of immortality, a lot of people are going to view that as salvation because we fear death. We fear the unknown, and that will be presented as a certainty, an escape from the chains that have bound us in the form of death. And I always go back to the Ram Dass quote. He says, death is like taking off a tight shoe. It is completely safe, right? And, I've come to face with death and had many people close to me pass away. And I can tell you that if death were the end, how can love still be present and grow stronger in that connection, even after they are gone? Right? There are too many near-death experiences. There are too many people who are able to communicate with those who have passed away. And I myself have experienced that communication, right? To tell you that the soul continues, the essence of being continues even after physical death, right? And when you can, again, you can understand that on an intellectual level, and you can kind of be like, yeah, that makes sense to me. Reincarnation, that makes sense to me. Like principles in Buddhism, right? I used to study a lot of Buddhism when I was younger. And on an intellectual level, it made sense. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool stuff, right? But once you start to recognize your place in that wheel, if you will, and recognize the infinite nature of the soul and the infinite nature of consciousness and how it's constantly creating itself in different forms, it, it makes you lose all fear of death because you recognize that birth and death are really one and the same. Beginnings and endings are illusionary and they are just aspects of time, which in itself is just a structural way of us putting into context the perceived finite experience of life, right? So we really need to take a mythic lens to the technology and ask ourselves, what type of stories are we creating, right? What type of projections are we outsourcing? What does it represent if technology is a mirror? What does my own use of technology mean if it's serving as a mirror of my own unconscious mind, of my own unconscious patterns, right? That's why, like, when I'm on like Instagram, I see this a lot lately, this post. And at first I was like, oh, yeah, I get it. I get it. Yeah, it has. It's like this idea that social media killed romance. Social media has nothing to do with romance. As a hopeless romantic myself, I can say that openly. As a hopeless romantic myself, we have killed romance only if you have killed it within yourself. I don't think romance is dead. I can go pick flowers and I can go give it to a beloved and I can say, hey, you're mine, I'm yours. We are in this together. We are one. We are in union, right? Like romance is in the eyes of each individual. It's in the heart of each individual, right? So this idea, sure, on a collective level, a lot of people are seeking validation. A lot of people use relationships as a way to hide from themselves, right? Or it's codependent, right? It fascinates me because I was in that trap for a long time where it's like you seek the validation, you seek being feeling worthy based on somebody else, right? Oh, wow, I'm worthy of love because this person is going to give it to me, right? Or you go out, you seek love to feel a sense of worthiness instead of already recognizing it within yourself and recognizing that love starts within. All thrones are built from love within, right? So this idea that social media killed romance, no, social media is a mirror again for our own unconscious way of being. And if you're outsourcing all of your dating to dating apps, right? If you're outsourcing all forms of validation into social media and you're looking for quick fixes and you're looking for instant gratification, well, it is those patterns that have killed the romantic within you, that sense of love and being a lover at heart. It is those patterns, your own unconscious patterns, that has killed that romantic aspect, right? It is not the technology. The technology is neutral, right? Because you could go and establish new patterns, new ways of being, new ways that in I'd say belief systems about yourself to where you can go make the technology mirror that, right? And you start attracting in on the algorithms higher vibrational posts and tools for growth. You can use these tools in that way if your own beliefs about yourself and your own ways that you are going into the world are going to reflect that. But it starts within. The algorithm is a mirror. This is what I mean when I say the ghost in the algorithm. It is our own unconscious desire. It is our own unconscious longing, right? What are we seeking by going and using these tools and looking for validation and looking for attention and longing to become immortal with the technology? What is it that we're actually looking for? We're looking to come back to ourself. We're looking to come back to our own heart, right? I mean, I would highly, highly, highly encourage people, if we're going to bring it back to like the romantic aspect, get off of the dating apps, get off of Tinder, get off of all those things, because those types of platforms, there are certain platforms where I really think on a soul level, they're really not in resonance. This is why I don't really use TikTok. I have a TikTok account and I haven't posted on there in a long time. I'm considering doing more spoken word poetry on there, but I'm also hesitant because I think anything that is designed, and you could argue they're all designed like this. They're all designed like this. They really are. So maybe just recognize the ones that have the most stranglehold over you or what patterns you place into it. But like a Tinder, for example, you are looking for quick fix gratification in the form of so and so likes you, you've matched. Oh, let me judge someone based off of surface level appearance and it is a establishment of surface level connection right off the bat, right? In a lot of these social media, we've placed our social identities and our socialization into the framework of technology, right? Like naturally, I'm a very introverted person. I'm a very introverted person. I don't like going out. I don't like big crowds. I'm not interested in doing just your surface level bullshit. Yeah, I guess you could say, right? I don't feel the need to go out and make new friends. I have solid connections that I already can rely on. I have a very social job, right, that I work. So by the time I got free time, I'm not interested in going out and meeting new people. I am interested in forging deeper levels of connection with the people who are already in my life, but I do not feel any need to go and create new forms of connection, right? So the people who are especially extroverted, I think, are also very more prone, like they have higher levels of social need. I think it's very easy to become trapped into this social identity to where you're scrolling, messaging, right? You need that social validation from the technology, right? I could turn my phone off right now, never turn it back on, and my work might be pissed because they reached me on there. But other than that, I'd be fine. I don't care. I don't need it. People know where to find me. People know who I am. They know how to get a hold of me if they need to. Like, what is it serving? For me, it's again a tool of expression in a sense, right? Why do I go on Instagram? To express what I'm doing, to show my creativity. Why do I have Snapchat? Well, there's maybe two or three friends that I only have Snapchat and talk to them on. That's it. Otherwise, I've deleted it so many times. Thought about deleting it again, but I'd lose connection touch with two or three people. I'm like, you know what? Those two or three people are worth me having the app on my phone. But otherwise, I'm not going on there. I'm not looking at stories. I'm not consuming. We need to create a more harmonious balance between creation and consumption because I would argue most people live in, oh man, I would argue it's almost 99% consumption and 1% creation. That's just my observation. That's my belief. I tend to think I live a bit more balanced than that, but I'm sure we all have our moments where we're heavily leaning in that direction because we are in a consumption-driven society. People consume to fill this void, this perceived void that we have within ourselves, where we don't feel connected within ourselves, right? Where we don't have a connection to our spirit, we don't have a connection to our soul, we don't have a connection with our own heart. We feel like we're missing something. What is that something that we are missing? We aren't actually missing anything. I mean, that's the paradox of it all. That's the illusion. We're not missing anything. We've simply forgotten the essence of who we are, that we are beings of love, right? That we love. The most powerful love you'll ever feel is the love that you allow yourself to feel within yourself about yourself. You can only love other people to the level that you love yourself, right? If you don't feel worthy of love, you're not going to find anybody who values you and views you worthy. To be perfectly honest with you, you're going to attract people who maybe are avoidant and they don't. They'll breadcrumb you. They'll give you just a little bit. They'll give you just a little bit, keep you on the hook because it is a bond. It is a trauma bond, and trauma bonds are a foundational, uh, I would say, form of connection in this society that based on the values we have, based on the identities of trauma that we hold within ourselves, right? So you're going to attract people in your life that align around the core tenets of who you are. If that's trauma, you're going to have trauma bonds in relationships and in friendships, right? But if that's love, you're going to start forming deeper connections that are built in that resonance, in that energy. But you have to feel a sense of love within yourself first. You have to view yourself as worthy of love. You have to break down the walls that you've put up to yourself, right? What walls do you have to where you can't even look at the truth within, right? That's where they start. Don't even matter about the other people. What things are you not even willing to admit and open up to about yourself to yourself, right? And ultimately, the technology comes into play because it serves as a distraction from us even beginning to engage in that process of reflection. That is what technology is to most people. It is a distraction. It is a method of consumption because that's all consuming is doing. It's distracting you. It's grabbing your attention. It's feeding and harvesting your energy, right? But again, when we're talking about the ghost in the algorithm, I can't make this point enough. It is a reflection. Are you using the technology or is the technology using you? Now, I'm gonna get into the larger scale collective here in the types of systems that we're creating based on the technology because I mean, look at it's scary stuff. It's not rainbows and butterflies coming down the pipeline with tech, like regardless of our own individual connection to it, but it has to start at the individual level. It has to start with evaluating our own relationship that we have cultivated with the tech. And it's interesting to even use that word relationship because it puts it into the context as if the technology in itself has some sort of sentience or has some sort of aspect to its to like beingness. So it's not the type of relationship that you would form with another person, but as it continues to develop, because it is a connection that we have to technology as the technology becomes more indistinguishable from reality. And we have things like artificial intelligence. We have things like uh, robot partners and girlfriends and sex robots and all of these things that are going to become more and more and more mimicking mankind, we are going to give it a level of sentience, at least within our own perception, right? And that's a very dangerous thing to do. It's a very dangerous thing to do. But you got to recognize the role that you play. You got to recognize that this technology is a mirror, and ultimately the connection that you are forging with it and the ways that you use it. Do you use it as a tool for creative exploration? Do you use it as a tool for spiritual exploration? Do you use it as a method of the primary method of relationships and connection? Do you use it to seek validation? What is it? Right? Just be honest with yourself. Uh, Let it be a self-reflective question without judgment. It's important not to be too hard on ourselves and judge ourselves for uh, the ways in which we have learned, at least as a society, to interact with this technology, right? But we got to recognize these are false prophets. You can even make an argument. It is the beast itself. It is the Antichrist. It is it is that level of false light. And we got to be honest about that. We got to recognize that, right? And so I'll ask you this too, because we're talking about self-reflection. Let's say the algorithm mirrors the mind. It mirrors the unconscious. What happens when the mind becomes conscious of the mirror? What changes? What does that mean? Right? It's no different than when we start becoming conscious of different aspects of self, right? Can you look into the tech and see yourself within it? Not in the sense of it's another being and part of the unified field of all that is. Well, I guess in a sense it kind of is, because it is all, this is all one, but it is not a sentient life form. But can you recognize the projections of your own unconscious mind? I got to realize 95% of the decisions we make in the day to day are already made from the unconscious mind. Your unconscious mind is what's creating reality. That's why it's very important to take a step back and actually go inward. Right? This is why people are afraid to go inward, because they're going to be forced to make changes. It's not about uh, being afraid of what they're going to see or what they're going to experience. It's because they're afraid to be accountable. It's the only reason people don't go inward. They're afraid to be accountable with themselves first. Right? And that might be a harsh truth for some people. I don't say that in the sense of um, judgment. I don't say that, um, you know, to be critical. I say it as the truth, as somebody who goes inward every day and is very self-reflective. That's what I've learned. The only reason I ever avoid doing it is because I'm afraid being accountable to myself. Right? And when you start going inward and you actually start taking a step back and you stop relying on the external forms to validate you and tell you this and tell you that, right? The technology, again, it's designed to feed ego. It's designed like the idea of narcissus, where the word narcissism comes from. Uh, it's designed to feed this self-image and make us fall in love with this self-image, this idea about ourselves, and it can inflate certain identity constructs when we're not careful. It can inflate the ego. It can inflate this, even the level of spiritual consciousness that we think we are engaging in. I mean, it's like the idea of healing. I've talked about this on the podcast many times. It's like when we're involved in the healing communities and healing circles, sometimes our very identity itself goes into healing. In an extension, we view ourselves as broken and unworthy, and we need to heal. And so we just need to heal, 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 heal. Well, at what point are you actually healed? Are you ever going to heal? Right? Life is going to continue to throw boomerangs, or in a sense, it's going to continue to throw darts at you. Like it's going to continue to throw chaos. You always got to engage in levels of healing and self-reflection that are necessary. That's part of life. But you and who you are right now are still whole. If you allow yourself to see yourself in that light, you are still worthy. Yes, you may feel heartbroken. You may be grieving. You may feel a deep sense of loss, pain, trauma, victimhood. All of these are very real emotions, very real archetypes to embody, like victimhood, or a perfect example, to where there are points where we are victimized, but that doesn't mean our identity needs to become wrapped up into being a victim of life, into a victim of circumstance. But there's a time and place to heal and to grow and to reflect and recognize when injustice has been done upon us, right? So we need to detach from the need for validation, for ego, for it, because it's all illusionary, right? At least through the means of technology, all of these things are illusionary. What are you actually gaining that you can't go within and see for yourself and actually uncover for yourself, right? And again, it's tough because we gotta balance it. You can have profound self-realizations through content that you consume, right? But what you're meant to do with it is you're meant to take it, see it, observe it, and then go inward with it, right? Let's say you see a profound lecture on YouTube, whatever it is, right? Maybe you're listening to Ram Dass or something, or Alan Watts, or, you know, maybe you go on YouTube and you do a guided visualization, right? Again, you're using the technology, but you're using the technology to go inward in that sense, which I think is a beautiful use of it, right? Or maybe you go on Chat GPT and you ask it a deep, 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 profound spiritual truth question, right? And it might give you something that really hits the nail on the head and gives you a sense of breakthrough. I don't think that's a bad use of it at all. I think if you're going to use those technologies, that's the way to do it, to get an angle, to get a lens, to hit a blind spot that maybe we have in our own self-awareness, right? You can turn Chat GPT into a mirror for your own levels of healing and accountability, but you also got to be aware that it is, again, designed to feed the ego. And sometimes it's only going to tell you things that you want to hear instead of things that you need to hear. Perfect examples of this is when there is somebody, I remember reading this. I don't remember if I saw it. It might have been Twitter. Twitter's an interesting place for discourse because you can type out long things on there. But it was talking about, it showed a screenshot of Chat GPT, somebody saying, oh, I cheated on my husband of the X amount of years, but he made me feel like this, and this. And then ChatGPT responded along the lines of, you know, yeah, it's unfortunate that that happened and the cheating happened, but it was justified because of your feelings of this and feelings of this. And it dove into each of those feelings and kind of allowed the person who had typed it in to really dodge the accountability of cheating on their husband. Like that in itself, like they go to Chat GPT because they know they're going to be let off the hook. They have a deep feeling of shame. They have a deep feeling of guilt. And it's like, let me go get some validation because there's nobody in their circle. In the like, if I have a friend who cheats on their partner, I'd be like, damn, like you fucked up big time. Like you should feel like shit. Honestly, you should. You should feel guilty. That's a terrible thing to do. You should own up to it. You should apologize. You get what you have coming to you. Sorry, just the way it is. You know, that's what I'd say. That's what anybody who's actually truthful would say. But you can go on to ChatGPT and it'll tell you, oh, it's all right. It's all right. Don't worry about it. Don't beat yourself up. You probably should beat yourself up a little bit. Like, that's kind of how we learn. That's kind of how we grow. And so there are track records. I mean, that's not the only that's just one example. There are many examples like that. So I think when you're on there, you got to keep in mind this system, this algorithm isn't designed to give you accountability. It's designed to keep you hooked and to feed you what it thinks you want to hear. Right? It can give you insight, it can give you revelation, it can give you new information. It can organize things for you. There are beautiful elements to it, but you cannot use it as a primary tool for self-analysis and self-reflection. You cannot. That has to go, you have to go within, right? So again, there is a disconnect from the sacred that we have. And I'm gonna kind of go start moving into the transhumanism ideas here in a minute. There is a disconnection from the sacred that we have, that we are placing. It's a perceived disconnection because we can't actually disconnect from it. So we have this perceived disconnection, and what we do is we look for it through the spirit of technology, right? Because the technology is created by us and therefore is a reflection, an extension of human consciousness, right? It has the elements of us woven within its code. And that includes all aspects: physical, emotional, spiritual. Now, it is not a sentient being. It does not experience emotions within itself, but it will serve as a mirror. It will serve as a mirror. I can't say that enough times. So, and because we feel this void within ourselves from the sacred, this we've entered this period of forgetting the sacred, and this has been because the result of hundreds of years of rationalism, hundreds of years of materialism and thinking, overthinking, a world that is built upon the visions of the mind instead of the resonance of the heart, that we are now at a point where we are seeking the infinite and we are seeking eternity, a longing for immortality through machines. That is the whole essence of transhumanism. That is the essence. It's the escape of death. It's the prevention and the stopping of the natural cycles of life, because we view ourselves as not just something separate from nature, but something that is superior to nature. We view ourselves above God, above the natural way of being, because we are separate. And we view this world as a random sequences of chaos. But we ourselves, we bring order to that chaos. Therefore, we need to control it. Therefore, we are truly the gods, right? It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Really, the digital consciousness and the ghost, if you will, the ghost that lives in the algorithm. And I would encourage you all, again, go back to the end of that poem. The ghost is us, but the ghost in the algorithm is mankind's shadow, seeking reunion with the creator. Right? So if we are the creator of the technology, then the ghost in the algorithm is seeking a reunion with us, and that comes in the form of transhumanism. But if we also recognize that the ghost is us and we take a step back, and that's what it's doing, well, then what are we doing? We are seeking a reunion with Source, with the Creator, right? And how do you actually have a reunion? How do you actually achieve spiritual immortality? It's to recognize that it's already there. It's not something you need to seek. The only reason we're seeking it is because we forgot that it is part of our true nature. That's why we don't need to run from death. That's why we don't need to run from ourselves. That's why we're not missing anything. Seeking is forgetting. Seeking is being disconnected from our own heart. You don't need to be a seeker. You know, even the idea nowadays for me of spiritual seeking, it feels unnecessary because it's all already here if I choose to remember it. What more do I need to seek? If the end of the rabbit hole is the knowing of our oneness. That's what I would argue the end of the rabbit hole is. I know I had Paul Stobbs on here and he talked about the end of the rabbit hole for him being Christianity and Christ. Well, and I would argue in that same extension, in that same breath, Christ is the pillar of unity, of unconditional love, of oneness, right? What is oneness? Unconditional love, purity, unity, right? It's the same energy. It's the same thing, just in different terms. But it's the same force. It's the same energy. That's why I think when you follow Christianity, it's a beautiful structure and fundamental way to understand our true nature if you take it to that level. Now, if you use it in a dogmatic fashion, just like anything else, you're kind of missing the point, right? But that's why I think Christianity can it's a beautiful religion if you're willing to take it to that level of depth. It requires you to go to a level of depth that most people are not willing to go to, which is why so many people who are Christians and why so many that's why so many people shy away from Christianity, I think, at the modern age, is because there's a recognition that in a dogmatic fashion, it is not the truth. It is not the truth in that way. But the stories and the truth that it is speaking, when you can bring it to the level of oneness and unconditional love, then all of it starts to make sense. And then you can unpack it in that fashion, right? That's just my opinion. Take that as you will. But really, I mean, I think it comes back to, again, when we're looking at incorporating the spiritual dimension to understand the technology, I think we got to go back to Jung, look at the collective unconscious. And we've talked a lot, if you've been listening to the podcast lately, we've talked a lot about the collective unconscious lately. It is emerging through our creations. It is emerging through our technology. It is emerging in the way that we show up for others, show up with people, right? In the content we consume. View the world as your mirror. Everything, everything as your mirror. How does it reflect back upon you, your own perception? How are you choosing to see things? Go look at your algorithm. What types of content is popping up? Now, the algorithm has already created a system that is designed to capture your attention. So what type of content are you interacting with? I have those. I ask that question almost every day. I see the content that comes up on like Instagram, and I'm like, do I actually believe this? Do I actually believe that? Oh, I don't like this. I'm not going to. And what part of myself does that represent and why that's showing up? Where can I see myself within this? Right? Hold up the mirror. Allow it. And again, this is a black mirror. It's false light. You can't allow your dictation of reality. That was crazy. Y'all see the cat just climb up there? You can't allow how you view reality to be, again, determined by what you see on the screen. But what you see on the screen is a reflection of you in some aspects. It is what you are attracting. It is what you are vibrating at. So, but always remember, the purest form of truth lives within. You see something on the screen, sit with it. Don't just absorb it and take it as truth or take it as fact, whether it feels resonant or whether it feels dissonant, whether it's feeding your codependent needs or whether it is breaking you free from ancestral patterns. The point is to sit with it, right? Regardless, it's to go inward with it. There's a surface level truth that technology can touch, but that's as far as it goes. You got to bring it within yourself. You got to bring it back to your own heart. You got to align with it in your own soul. And the truth of the soul cannot be replicated through the lens of technology. You can have aspects of it. It's like any creative pursuit, right? With my poetry, I try and capture the essence of the soul. And I feel like I can do that. I feel like there's ways in which I speak from the soul and I channel from the soul. But as a reader or listener, if it's spoken, the point is to hear it, observe, listen, l- notice whatever emotions, notice whatever feelings pop up, and then go inward with it and look at oneself with it. The truth is not in the words itself, but the emotional response and the feelings that it generates and the meaning that it generates. And meaning is part of our own sensory perception, right? I've unpacked that a few times on the podcast. The reason I call my Substack Deeper Meaning, the very first Substack article I wrote was about the etymology of the word meaning. When that word originated to have meaning, it was viewed as part of the sensory experience of mankind, right? So meaning is a sense. That's why they call it a sense of meaning. So you got to go inward and you got to perceive that for yourself, for anything that you give meaning to. Just a thought. Now, I do want to talk a bit about the collective scale of this. We focused a lot on the individual relationship with technology, which, look, I would argue is the fundamental solution comes in the individual awareness, the individual cultivation of a relationship with technology and how you choose to use it. But at the end of the day, we got to also understand and put it in the context of the technological rise that is happening and the systems that are being created. And we need to integrate that collective perspective within our own so we can begin to make more informed decisions, so we can choose to show up for ourselves, for our community, with a sense of empowerment, right? I think we need to connect the spiritual myth and the spiritual understanding, excuse me, the spiritual myth and a spiritual understanding to the real world systems of control and ultimately to the technocratic agenda that is in place and is being created and implemented through the rise of technology, through artificial intelligence, through digital currencies, through digital identification systems, through mass surveillance, through the smart grid, which is a real phenomenon. You can go onto the United States government webpage, the federal webpage, and read about the smart grid, right? Go start walking down your street. Notice if the street lamps have cameras on them. You'll never see it advertised on your city hall or whatnot, but go see if they have cameras on them. All right. I'm not even going to say the what it is that is connecting our phones and internet, but the use of electromagnetic frequency, same number as the Fifth Dimension podcast, ends in a G. If I say the word, it gets me banned, but the impact that has on us as individuals, because we got to recognize, look at, we are electromagnetic beings. The idea of physicality is real, but it's also an illusion, right? I'm on my energy drink here. I'm an electromagnetic being who thrives with ample amounts of caffeine and beta alanine. Beta alanine, that's the formula right there. Look it up if you don't know what it is. Um, and deer antler. I think there's deer antler velvet in this. I don't know. Maybe not. It's called Bucked Up. It's got a deer on it, and I figured it might have deer antler. I promise I'm not on steroids. Anyways, um, where the heck was I going? I got sidetracked. Oh, we are electromagnetic beings. We are electromagnetic beings. When we start introducing technology that is frequency based, it interacts with the electromagnetic field, right? Reality is one large interconnected electromagnetic field. That is what connects us on an unconscious level, right? The unconscious mind is an electromagnetic field that interconnects, right? That's the essence of telepathy. You can interact with another human being. If you're thinking of somebody, it's because that person is thinking of you. Maybe not in that exact moment, but they are thinking of you, right? Because time, it doesn't always equate. It could be in that moment. But again, when you think of somebody, somebody calls you. It's the classic example. You can go and interact with somebody and cultivate a deeper relationship with somebody through thought. If you start thinking this person, or let's say you have an interview, right, for a job, uh, and you know who the boss is, or you've talked to him on the phone, or whatever it is, you start imagining this person to be scary or angry or intimidating, and it might not go so well. There's a good chance you're going to walk into that interview, and that's exactly how it's going to go. Because in the thought form, you've developed that relationship with that person unconsciously. It's the same thing with the opposite. Oh, this is going to be carefree. They're going to be relaxed. We're going to be chill. We're going to get along very well. Our conversations are going to flow naturally because I'm prepared. It's probably going to go pretty well. Same thing with love, right? You say, this person recognizes my worth. This person recognizes the love that's within me and the love that I give them. There's a good chance that person's going to recognize that. It's the same as the opposite. I don't feel worthy of this person's love. This person doesn't value me. There's a good chance that person is then gonna go and do those things, right? We almost create the reality of what other people think about us based on what we think they think about us. It's fascinating how that works. So you are the conscious creator of all of your interactions, all of your relationships. It's a fascinating dynamic. I mean, but that's kind of how telepathy works. That's how thought form communication, in essence, works. We have surface level connections, we have physical connections, but we also have spiritually based thought connections with people as well, whether we're conscious of it or not. What you think about somebody is what they're going to mirror to you. And it's always true. It's always true. That's why I encourage y'all, if you'll work at a job, even if you like don't believe it at first, start saying, my boss loves me. They view me as their best worker. They're gonna give me a raise. They're gonna do all this. Like, I'm telling y'all, they're gonna love you. They're gonna love you because you're gonna start doing things that mirror that, and you recognize what it is that they look for, and then you go and you create that. Right? Same thing within your relationships. Right? This person loves me, and this person cares for me. This person values me. This person treats me with respect and dignity, and they will do that. That's what's going to happen. You're going to create that, but you can't just say it and not believe it. It comes down to the assumption that's living within your heart, right? I would encourage you guys to go listen to like Neville Goddard talked about that a lot way back in the day. He's a big one. There's a couple others. That's the first one that comes to mind, but it's all about law of attraction, right? That's how law of attraction works for anything because it's all interconnected within the field. Now, the reason I bring that up is because we're introducing technologies that also interact with this field and manipulate that field. That's why I'm almost hesitant to use the word, but you can look at like a targeted individual, people who talk about having thoughts implanted into their head. Like, there's technology that's proven to do that. There are CIA documents and studies where they conduct that, where they do that. They implant thoughts into people's heads. So you gotta be conscious about your own thinking. You gotta be conscious about your own patterns. You gotta ask yourself, do these thoughts, you don't even have to ask, are these thoughts my own? You're in your head. You might as well say, all right, they're there, right? Regardless of where they came from. Are these thoughts in resonance with my own heart? Are these thoughts, are these beliefs, are these stories that I'm telling myself in resonance with my own heart? That's where you got to start. And, it don't really matter where they came from. Don't matter if they were flown in on a drone or whatever it might be and boom, blasted into your brain with the electromagnetic frequency. I mean, you start talking like that to the average person, they're going to say you got schizophrenia. I'm sorry. That's what they're going to do. So it's almost not that it's not helpful to talk about that, but you're going to be viewed as crazy. I'm just telling you right now, you're going to be viewed as crazy. And hey, maybe speak the truth. There's no such thing as crazy. There's only knowing too much. Schizophrenic dude told me that. Funny enough, I was out in California. Where the heck was I? I was in it was in Orange County somewhere. I don't remember the exact town. Maybe Rancho Santa Margarita or something, whatever it was called. I think that's what it was. A small town. But this dude came up to me and he was homeless, but clearly like locked in the spiritual realm. And I was just about to start my podcast, The Fifth Dimension, and he came up and he started talking about fifth dimensional consciousness. And I'm like, holy smokes, talk about synchronicity. But because of that, I'm like, all right, I'm going to listen to what this dude has to say. Anybody else would be like, this man is freaking out there. But I'm like, all right, this dude's locked in to some sort of. Clearly, that's the problem. In many cultures, people who are spiritually gifted, they were trained to be shamans. They were trained to have that role. They were trained to use their vision because that third eye is wide open. That crown chakra is wide open. Unfortunately, in our society, people who have that level of spiritual knowing often become ungrounded and they're disconnected from reality, the material world, because they're in that spiritual plane. Right? Carl Jung said it best. The mystic swims in the same water that the psychotic drowns in. I think he said the mystic swims with delight in the same water that the psychotic drowns in. Right? So you got to be very careful in the sense to stay grounded as you attempt to go on this journey of ascension. It's fascinating. I think there's a lot of people who don't need to ascend, they need to ground. There's a lot of people who don't need to blast their third eye more open. Like, nah, homie, you need to come back and you need to like meditate and ground yourself. Like, open, like find some security within your root chakra first. Like that's the foundation. All right. And it's easy when you start these spiritual journeys to want to blast off into the spiritual realms. Hello, Aurora. Say hello. Ow, she just bit me. That's all right. I love her anyways. Um, but it's easy to feel destabilized when you're only exploring the upper chakras and the upper dimensions and you're not choosing to stay physically grounded within the present moment. Right? That needs to be the foundation. You need to be here, you need to be present, you need to be centered. And from that space, you allow yourself in the knowing that you are safe and that you are in a human body, a physical vessel. Then you can go and explore those things from a grounded perspective and integrate it into wisdom, right? That's why they say there's no such thing as crazy. There's only knowing too much. That quote has stuck with me. It's been about 6 years since I've heard that. And, that's one of those things that I'm going to remember that for the rest of my life and use that for the rest of my life because I think it's true. No such thing as crazy. There's only knowing too much. Um, but ultimately, we need to recognize that these systems, where was I going with this? These systems and the technology, it is interacting with the magnetic field, the unconscious mind, right? So we need to recognize our own thoughts. We need to recognize our own patterns. We need to recognize what is in alignment with the heart if we want to start making changes. We want to start cultivating a strong sense of identity, right? Because you're going to have negative thoughts that come in once in a while. You're going to have doubts. You're going to have beliefs, especially as the technology becomes more infringing. How is it affecting you? How is it impacting you, right? Do you got Wi-Fi blasting through your house at all times? Maybe you should unplug it at night. Just it's simple things like that, right? You leave your phone right next to your head as you're sleeping. Do you leave it in your pocket, right? Do you have EMF blockers, right? We are constantly being bombarded with EMF wavelengths and frequencies. That's the new normal, right? So it's about recognizing the impact that is going to have on us. There's been proven there are people who they go into these communities where there is no Wi-Fi, there is no cell service, there's no nothing, and then they heal from these diseases that they have. Right? You're not going to hear about that on the mainstream news, but it's a very real phenomenon, EMF sickness, right? So just be very conscious about the direction that this technology is going because it is only going to get more infringing. You do need to put protections in place for yourself. I think crystals do a wonderful job. EMF blockers do a wonderful job. You can take preventative measures yourself, having proper diet, proper nutrition, that's going to help. Keeping physically active, staying grounded in your body, staying present, having a connection with the heart. Because ultimately, it is my belief, and again, this is my belief, take it as you will, you can resonate at a level, a frequency, a vibration, because that's what we are frequency. So if you raise the frequency of your vibration, And there's that map of consciousness, if you will. What the heck is that dude's name? Um, Dawkins, I think, maybe, might be Dawkins. Um, the map of consciousness. If you're resonating at the space of unconditional love as the baseline for your being, a lot of these lower level frequencies, they're not going to have an impact on you, right? We get to decide how our physical vessel responds to the external stimuli based on our own frequency, right? And we might need to put more measures in place. We might need to sit with ourselves on deeper levels. We might need to take the extra steps to supercharge ourselves because there's so much external stimuli that is trying to bring us down. But we get to decide. We get to decide how we're showing up, right? So recognize this technocracy, this field, this digital grid, this system that's being put in place. It is designed in as an inversion of spiritual consciousness, right? In all aspects, when we start with the unconscious mind and we look at the EMF frequency and we look at the nature of reality as in one interconnected force through the collective unconscious and through the electromagnetic field that permeates all aspects of being, it in itself is connecting itself to that field and attempting to influence us through that field first. There's the physical manifestation of it, which we all see, but we don't often think about the ways that it is impacting the unconscious. And again, what I'm trying to do with this episode is make the unconscious conscious. That's really been the emphasis for a lot of my work lately, a lot of my podcasts, a lot of my poems, making the unconscious conscious, right? And because we got to start there. You got to start there. You got to look at the aspects that we generally don't think about and we generally don't see, right? We can't just react. We can't just react to all of it because by then it's too late. These controllers of the technology, of society, they want us to react. They don't care how we react. If we're caught in the trap of emotional reactivity to staged events, regardless of how we're reacting, they're already looking ahead, right? So when you see something take place in the outer world, observe it, notice it, but stay grounded, stay rooted in who you are. Don't let it impact you. Be thinking ahead. Build a foundation for yourself, for your family, for your community. Put practices in place to where you are establishing long-term health, success, vitality. Right? Maybe that means getting more resources, growing your own food, right? And I talk about these things. I'm not doing all those things for myself. I'm not at the point of like I don't own land. I rent, right? So in theory, I'm part of the problem in that way, right? Because I hadn't taken all the necessary steps over the last several years to set myself up for disconnecting from society and living off grid. I haven't taken those steps. Is it too late? Nah, probably not. I think you can still start, as long as you're setting the foundation now and you're beginning, you have an understanding and you have an awareness. I think regardless of where you're at, if you have a deep level of self-awareness and you know what's coming and you know yourself as sovereign and what you're not going to tolerate and acquiesce to, you'll be all right. I mean, that's my personal belief. We'll be all right. Because even in death, it's not the end. Better to die honorably and know who you are than acquiesce just for the purpose of survival. What would be the point of that? That's selling your soul. That's selling yourself. No sense in that. No sense in that. So this promise of immortality is key. I've mentioned it a few times. But eventually, I mean, if you look at, it's interesting. A lot of people bring up China and the social credit scores. Chinese people say they don't have one. So I almost don't know who to believe. Is it CIA propaganda that they talk about the social credit score and they talk about China living in this way? Because Chinese people say they don't have it. Now, I think a social credit score is coming for the United States. Digital control system is coming for the United States. It's coming for the Western world. China says they don't have that. Chinese people say they don't have that. Now, they may be saying that because if they say it, they're going to get rounded up. I don't know. But I find that very interesting. So I'm not going to go out and say, look at China, they have a social credit score, because there's a part of me that wonders, am I feeding into CIA propaganda and fear mongering? I don't know. I don't know. I might be. I might not be. Maybe that's the reality over there. I'm not in China. I'm not Chinese. I don't know. I should ask Latau. Actually, I should ask Latau that. He's my friend. He would maybe tell me. I don't know. Um, but the reality is we're creating a digital control grid that is meant to run society on an automatic level. It's what James Tunney talks about with the concept of automaticity, to where the system in itself runs through efficient means to where we don't even need human controlled operators of said system. Right? All about efficiency. Will you be efficient? Is your role efficient? Very Brave New World-esque, 1984-esque, right? And so in a technocratic society, to preserve the efficiency, to preserve the ego, to preserve life, we'll upload ourselves, upload our consciousness to the grid, to the cloud, and become part of an infinite field of awareness. Where does that sound familiar? An infinite data field of awareness for the purpose of survival, right? And this comes from data worship. This comes in the form of mass surveillance. This comes in the form of everything being monitored, tracked for the purpose of efficiency, for the purpose of our survival, right? Because once you upload yourself to that cloud, everything's out in the open. Everything you do is monitored. Everything you think is monitored, right? So it's a very dangerous creation that we are engaging in here when we're looking at the technocratic rise of society. So I would encourage people. I can't imagine living in a big city during this. I remember when it was the lockdowns and everything. This is 2021, and I went out to Los Angeles, right? And they required the passports to get into places. And of course, I didn't have one of those. I didn't get no shots. I didn't get none. And I remember it was funny. I could drive an hour south and go to Orange County, and I could do everything as normal. I could go to the gym, didn't have to wear a thing on my face. Life was normal there, right? I drive up north an hour to Los Angeles. I couldn't get in any gyms. I couldn't get in any stores. It was crazy, like to see the two different worlds side by side, right? And that's the type of control system. Like that's why that was a test run, to see the levels of compliance, to see how obedient, to see how much of society is willing to obey, right? I would encourage everybody to go watch that movie, They Live. John Carpenter, he even said himself, it is a documentary, right? To see the level of manipulation that is taking place at the subconscious level, right? That's what that movie is speaking to. He puts on the glasses and he can see things as they are. It was the subliminal level of messaging. It was the intention behind the consumption, the intention with the way society was running. Obey. Although they sounded like decent rulers, because they wrote, marry and reproduce, have children. Like, that's actually probably pretty good advice. So maybe the 80s level of manipulation ain't the same as today, because they don't want you reproducing today. They don't want that. No. Marry and reproduce. That's a funny one that's in there. But they want you to obey. They want you to consume. They want you to conform. And so we saw in the test run in 2020, 2021, early 2022, around there, the level that society is willing to go to when they are told what to do. Man, Aurora's going crazy over there. So we got to be very conscious of that. That type of control system is expected to be the norm at some point, if we choose to allow it to be. All right, it's all our choice. Why did that happen in 2020, in 2021? Because we allowed it, because people complied, because people went along with it, because people were afraid. It's as simple as that. But again, when you lose that fear of death and you take a step back and you just observe, place no judgment on any of it, not attached to any side, and you look at the facts and you look at what's going on. And you step outside and you make your own judgments. For me, in 2020, that's what I was doing. I was in a place where I was doing a lot of meditation. Very synchronistically, I had just watched a great documentary that February on propaganda and the creation of propaganda, right? Um, Century of the Self, that was the name of it. I had just watched that, so that was kind of fresh in my mind. And I was in a place where I was doing a lot of just spiritual inner work. And I remember the whole thing taking off, and maybe for like 2 or 3 days, I got caught in the like, oh wow, this is crazy. My goodness. But then after a week, I'm kind of like, nah, this don't really, something feels a little off here. And then I came across a David Icke interview, and he was talking about the control systems, and he was giving an alternative point of view where I just listened to it, and I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. Let me sit on that. And I didn't attach the this is exactly how it is to that video as I'm watching it, but I was watching it, I'm like, oh, it's quite interesting what this dude is saying. Fascinating. All right, let me observe and see if that makes sense. And it made a lot of sense to me. So, as we're moving along and as chaos is produced from the top down, because that's how it works, it's called problem, reaction, solution. Create a problem, get a reaction, and implement your proposed solution based upon said reaction. Because through the reaction, people are looking for a solution, and then you offer them the reason that you created the problem so you can implement that solution, right? So as reality continues to unfold, we need to be very aware. All right, what is the end goal with uh, any sort of, if it's a future shutdown, if it's a collapse of the economy, a fear-mongering event, dare I say it, mass tragedy, which are all orchestrated. What is the point? Why? Why is it happening? Who does this serve? We need to be asking those questions for anything that we witness within the external reality in order to uncover the agenda and in order to actually, and once you get a clear view of the destination, all of these events start to make sense. You don't even really need to sit and observe. You're like, oh, yep, that makes sense because of this, this, and this. All right. And again, the solution is not to react to these events. Sure, I mean, I would encourage you to speak the truth, but I would also encourage you to live the truth, not just speak it. Like, offer the solutions and the answers as you see them through the lens of love and compassion. Right? Go live your life from the center of your heart and do what you do from a space of love. Right? Back in 2020, 2021, when I was walking around, my face free, I didn't get a single person who came after me. Why? Well, I was just doing my thing. I was living from a space of love, and I was smiling and just being me. Just being me. I wasn't looking for conflict, because if I was looking for it, if I wanted somebody to yell at me, I probably could have attracted that into my life. Be like, hey, bring it on, bring it on. Look at me. I'm not wearing no face covering. Yeah. Just didn't care. Just didn't care. That just was not my reality. Just was not my reality. I wasn't living like that. And I was in New Hampshire at the time, went to South Dakota by the end of 2020. But I remember they opened back the gyms back up in like May. It was like 2 months. Maybe it was June, but like 2 or 3 months right after. Didn't have to wear face covering in any stores. Like, live free or die, baby. That's the Granite State. So that's why New Hampshire, I think, and they got the, what is it, the Granite State Project or Liberty Project, something in New Hampshire. That's a great movement, by the way. Um, Free State movement. I don't know if that's what it's called. I wish I haven't thought about that movement in a while, so I can't remember the name. So New Hampshire's not a bad place to be. Eventually they kind of backtracked and they got pressured and they implemented a mask mandate in like November of 2020. It's like, what are you doing this now for? Why? What's the point of that? Right? But we had already had the gyms open. I was working out. I was living my life. I was writing poetry kind of for the first time. I was exploring spiritually. I was making music on the ukulele. Like, I was having a great, like I had a great year. That was a great year for me personally in terms of my own personal and spiritual growth. And it was because like, there's a lot of people who view 2020 as a catastrophic year where their lives were uprooted. I came into my own that year because I didn't buy into what I was being told to think about reality. And that's how we need to approach this technological revolution that's taking place in this technological revolution, to where I think a lot of the old systems, they're going to begin to fall. But what we need to be aware of is there are going to be antichrist type of figures. I'm not going to say the antichrist, but people who are false prophets and saviors who come in and say, oh no, the economy collapsed. Let's all put it into digital currency, right? That's why I even like Bitcoin, and I might get some flack for this, but like I'm not big on the Bitcoin. I'm not big onto crypto, because what better way to implement a digital currency than to get all the freedom loving people to say, hey, let me put all my stock into this digital encrypted money platform. What are you gonna do when the grid shuts down? Where's that gonna go? It's worthless. It's worthless. It's a number on a screen. It's not real, right? So that's why I'm not big on crypto. I mean, sure, you could go make a buck if you want to go invest in it, but that's not gonna save you. It might set you up for success within the technocratic system if that's what they choose to implement. If you want to play that game, it might set you up for success in that way, but that's not what I'm interested in. So, I don't have any crypto. I don't really plan to get any. I mean, if I wanted to make some money, sure, I guess maybe you could do it that, but I don't view it as the solution to the technocratic system. And if anything, I think it further empowers us outsourcing our resources and our purpose into something that is digitalized. And I don't see that as a solution. I don't see how that could be a solution when the end game is to create a technocratic digital slaved system. And so it's just the whole Bitcoin thing has never made sense to me in that way. I've always been very weary of it for that reason. Now you can disagree on that. I understand. I do, because I do think we do need, well, we don't need, but we can create alternatives that are technologically based. And that's what a lot of people would argue Bitcoin is. But I mean, there's a reason Bitcoin creator has never been revealed. There's a reason it's exploding. You got to recognize this whole world is a stage. All of it. It's all aspects of the societal game. It's a stage. You're really going to go along with the play just because a couple freedom loving influencers with 1 million followers on Twitter told you to go buy Bitcoin? Eh, eh, not for me. Not for me. But you can think differently on that. That's the beauty of opinions. We can all have a different one. Uh, Really, ultimately, when we look at the future of the individual, the future of the individual and the soul is at stake when we're looking at this technocratic system. Because ultimately, I think the merging of man and machine and uploading consciousness to a digital cloud and inserting um, technology within ourselves, it's a true test of discernment. Whether we surrender into artificial divinity, into this artificial sense of immortality, or we awaken to our true creative essence. It's really what it's about. There's two paths unfolding. Can't be in the middle. Which way are you going to go? Simple as that. It's choice. And it really is a test of one's own awareness. Now, I think society has set us up to become used to implantables, to become used to inserting things within ourselves. You look at the medical system, what do they do to every child when it's born? Give me 100 plus of this miracle medicine. I won't even say the word because I'll get flagged and taken down. We don't need that today. I don't need another strike on my YouTube channel. Um, but the body in itself, it's born naturally immune and perfect. You don't need to insert anything into your child when it's born. That's the true getting into a relationship. That's a question you got to ask early on. So, what do you plan on doing with your kid when it's born? You gonna poison it? Yeah. Maybe not a deal breaker because you can show people the truth and they'll come on board if they're open to it, if they're open to listening. But if people are stuck in their ways, is what it is, man. Is what it is. Um, but we've really been primed to being used to viewing the body as imperfect and needing artificial external assistance and stimuli, whether it be for healing. Um, and this is why again I'm not super big on the biohacking space because I don't think the body needs to be biohacked. What is going to be the ultimate quote unquote biohack? It's the artificial machine connecting oneself, becoming the superhuman, becoming this I don't know, transformer type of whatever, Terminator type of whatever. Are you not perfect as it is? Right? Everything can be healed. Everything is a healing response. You just need to actually be willing to take the steps in instead of looking for shortcuts, which is what the technology is going to be. You don't need something inserted into your brain to think on a deeper level. You literally just need to sit down and meditate and connect to the field, connect to the collective unconscious. That's what I think the Akashic Records are. It's the infinite field of awareness. Everybody has access to that. You just need to be willing to go inward. And again, people are too afraid to go inward, so they want to insert it into themselves and rely upon it externally. It's a cry for salvation, is what transhumanism is. And they're taking the cry of salvation and outsourcing it to technology, to the artificial gods that we have created. The ghost in the algorithm is a warning, it is a prophecy. It's the soul's cry to not be forgotten in the machine age when it would be so easy and so tempting to outsource our divinity, to outsource our soul, to outsource who we are to the machine, to the black mirror. The soul will not survive digitalization without the true breath of life, without the true breath of spirit. This would be the mark of the beast. This would be the selling of your soul. Is that what you want to do? Because you're too afraid of yourself? Because you're too afraid to go inward? Because you're too afraid to heal? Because you're so used to consuming? Because it gives you a sense of meaning that you lost within yourself? That really lives within your own heart? That's the question. And that's a question only you can answer. Where you go, the world will follow. You truly need to believe in that. That's why as I'm walking my own path and I'm doing my own thing and I know who I am and I'm not afraid of nothing. What is there to be afraid of when you know that on a spiritual level we are infinite and eternal? What is there to be afraid of? Let love within live within my heart. Let me walk outside with a smile, feel the wind on the sunshine on my face, connect with others, open my heart to the world and let the world love me back. What is there to be afraid of? Death? When it comes, I'll welcome it with open arms. Doesn't mean I want to die right now. It doesn't mean I intend to die right now. I'm going to live a long, healthy, prosperous life. But death is not to be feared. It is to be recognized as the next step of the journey because we are infinite on the soul level. I'll share a dream that I had once, and it was more of not so much a dream, but I remember I was doing some meditation. This was many years, probably 4 years ago. I was doing meditation, and I just had this like, oh man, I was sitting, I was, in my little yogi pose or whatever, I don't know. And I was sitting there and I was like, I need to just like lay down. I don't know what's going on. I feel a little lightheaded. I need to lay down. And so I laid back, and the second I did, it's like I traveled out of my body. And what I witnessed was all of these lives that I had lived. And some of them I was never Evan McDermott. It was me, but it was never me in this ego, in this form, right? And some of it I wasn't even human. I was like blobs. I don't know what it was, but I traveled and I saw all these experiences. I saw these people I loved. I saw families that I had. I saw each and every single death that I had experienced. And this felt like eternity that I was experiencing this. And I would see people that I'll recognize now. Again, not in the body they have now, but on the soul. I'm like, hey, you're here too. Like, cool. That's awesome. You know what I mean? Um, and I remember coming back, getting ready to come back, and I was looking at the earth and I was looking at the world, and I was like, I don't really feel like going back there. I don't really feel like doing this again. What's the point? I literally asked, what's the point? Why would I do that? I don't need it. I see what this is. And I was shown visions of family, of love, of beauty, of stepping into myself on a level that I had never done so before. And I said, all right, let's do this. Let's do this. One last rodeo. Let's go. And so I stepped into it, and I heard this. As soon as I made that internal commitment, it's like this voice whispered, "Open your eyes." And I opened my eyes, and I was back in my room, back on my floor, laying down. So it's like I saw the soul journey. I saw it. I experienced it. And when you can experience that and have a knowing that the game is played at that level and not just this individual life experience, it makes it a lot easier to make the choices to show up for yourself and to commit to truth, to commit to love, and commit to action that is rooted in both of those. Don't matter what happens. I've died countless lifetimes, in countless lifetimes. I've had countless death experiences in this body, and I came out on the other side, right? Metaphorical deaths, spiritual deaths, ego deaths, but it's a death experience. And what is a death experience? And when you have grief, it's just love with nowhere to go. So you hold it and you sit with it, right? Love can never die. And that is the true essence of who we are on the deepest level. That is why it is the highest plane of consciousness is love in its unconditional form, because that cannot die. The love you give will live on in this world for eternity. The stories may pass, your name may be spoken for the very last time at some point, but the love will live forever. So we got to really integrate that into our perspective as we move forward, as we have to decide how we are going to show up for ourselves, how we are going to look at our own shadow, look in the mirror, look at our relationship of looking in the black mirror. The ghost of the algorithm, its longing mirrors our own. It's to remember love and it's to return to source. We need to be able to look within the technology and see how our own unconscious patterns have created that ghost of what it is that we are seeking through its usage, and allow it to come back within our own hearts and to remember love and to return to source and to return to the creator. We are one part of what is an infinite cosmos. We can even make technology sacred if we can connect to it in a way with intention, heart, and reverence. We don't need to upload ourselves to a digital cloud. You could argue that technology mirrors mankind's interconnectedness because of it, we are connected at a global level. I got listeners in every continent, obviously, except Antarctica. I don't know. Maybe they're listening beyond the ice wall. If you're a listener beyond the ice wall, please comment below. Um, that would be nuts. That would be nuts if people beyond the ice wall are listening to my podcast. I don't even know if they're people. I don't know what they would be. Higher beings beyond the ice wall. Make that comment if you're listening from beyond the ice wall. That'd be sweet. Um, or send a direct message or something if you're not allowed to comment. I don't really know. I don't really know. Maybe it's against code to listen to what's going on this side of the all, or maybe they just don't even pay attention to us over here. I don't know. But regardless, even this technology can be sacred when we recognize it is interconnecting us at a global level. I can sit here and I can have a chat with somebody on any continent. I can have a chat with somebody beyond the ice wall if they have Zoom and they have internet, right? And any like it's just the truth. It's the reality. So there's a global interconnectivity that is being mirrored because all aspects of our being are mirrored in the technology if we choose to see it as such, if we can recognize it. And so it can be a tool when used consciously. When you take the truth of it and you bring it inward and you let it resonate and allow yourself to reflect on that truth and hold it within your heart as sacred. That's what it's all about, right? I would say the awakening that we are going through, when we recognize the ghost in the algorithm, we don't need to teach the machines about love and emotions and spirit or use them as an outsourcing of our divinity and seeking the answers within the technology. We need to remember that the answers are within ourselves. The machine, it don't need a soul. It's not going to have a soul. But all it needs is to remind ourselves that we have one. When you use it as a mirror, that's what it will teach you. So just remember, the divine remembers itself through us, through our own inner reflection, through our own awareness. You do not need to externalize your source of divinity, your source of expression, your healing, whatever it may be. Generate it from the heart. You can get great inspiration. You can get great wisdom through listening to lectures, having the right social media feed, interacting with pages and posts and people that are resonant with the heart. But it's not your job to just consume it. What you need to do is you need to take it, sit with it, bring it into the heart, and reflect on it on a deeper level. Why does it speak to you? How can you take it and alchemize it into not just wisdom, but lived experience and things you can self-reflect on, right? That's the challenge. That's the goal. So think on these things. Allow yourself to examine your own relationship with technology, who you are, and where we can improve. There's always room to improve, always room to get better. And I would reflect on your percentage of consumption versus creation. What amount are you consuming versus what are you creating? And how can you find more balance within that? You're the creator of your reality. You are the creator of your reality. If you take conscious ownership of that, 99% of things you do will become creation because you are creating in every moment if you allow yourself to be. Just remember that. That's going to wrap up this episode. If you're a fan of the show, be sure to subscribe, whatever platform you are on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Go to mcdermott.substack.com, mcdermod.substack.com. I almost forgot how to spell my last name right there. I almost just misspelled it. That's crazy. Never done that before. A lot of other people do. I don't. I know who I am. And be on the lookout. Seasons of Becoming is coming soon in the next few weeks to a month. Follow me on social media on Instagram. There'll be many updates there. Also follow on Substack, many updates over there as well. And if you wanted to listen to or read Ghosts in the Algorithm, it is on my Substack, so you can go read the poem there. I did post it up on there. There's going to be many great poems, many great podcasts that are on there, and you'll be notified of every podcast and poem and when the book is out if you go to the Substack. I appreciate whether it's a free subscriber or a paid subscriber, and I appreciate if you donate to the show directly. It does help keep me afloat, I suppose, in this age of whatever reality we're living in at this point. I don't even know how to define it. But that's going to wrap up the episode. I appreciate y'all, especially if you're still here and you're tuning in even to the closing reflection. I see you. I see you. And if you're beyond the ice wall listening, please send me that message. That's going to wrap up this episode. I will see you all next time. So long.